When I go to the pet store and see the worms you buy for your pets to eat, I always wonder what would happen if instead of feeding them, you let them live and morph into their next stage of life. So I brought 3 of them home to see what would really happen to these weird little green worms. I needed to see what they would turn into. I decided to bring 1 small, 1 medium, and 1 large one home. I also bought some coconut fiber for their bedding, hydrated it with some water, and placed some of it right inside their little home in some cupcake tins. For food, I added this chow and some tomatoes, which, by the way, once they eat tomatoes, you can't feed them to any other animals because they become toxic. But once their little home was ready, I added the little worms inside, and I soon noticed that they began to circle the enclosure. They ate really rapidly, and they used their little suction cup cute feet to maneuver their way around this enclosure. They ate for a number of days, and a lot. And soon, I noticed one of them turning more of a yellow color and burying itself into the coconut fiber. And that made me realize that it was probably starting to get ready to transform and prep for metamorphosis. Everything was on track, and I was excited, until one of the days came and I noticed that one of them had a problem. There was a little piece of skin that it was trying to shed that got stuck on its tail, and I needed to see if I could remove it. But I didn't want to cut off the circulation of the little guy and deem us murderers, so I had to be really delicate. I didn't want to pull the tail off altogether, and I wasn't even sure if I'd be able to get it off at all because it was wrapped around very tightly. But somehow, by the grace of the moth gods, I was able to gently pull it off, and this little one was gonna live to see the cocoon. So, they continued to eat their tomatoes and their chow, and I continued to monitor them over the next few days, waiting for a much anticipated moment to occur before my very eyes. They turn into hawk moths, so not exactly from the butterfly family, but they're from the same order in that they both grow scaled wings and they have a relatively short lifespan as moths of about 2 to 3 weeks. It can take 30 to 50 days to transform from an egg to adult, but in the end, I like to call these things butterflies. You can't really let them loose because they're invasive, so it's more about my own desire to learn about animal species that I'm unfamiliar with and hopefully educate others on the beauty that surrounds their life cycle. These specific ones are tomato hornworms, so they feed mostly on tomatoes, but there are also tobacco hornworms, and both feed on their respective host plants. It can be really hard to spot them on your plants, but trust me, you will know once the plant that you have starts to disappear. A family of hornworms can demolish a huge tomato plant in just a few hours. And in nature, the horn on the end of their tails helps them fight off predators, and the striped pattern with the little dots that look like eyes also help them fight. And listen, although they do look delicious, like Lion King worthy, of course, we weren't feeding them to anything because we were watching their life cycles, and that is so much cooler. Soon, I noticed the 2 bigger ones getting more restless. They were sprinting around in circles, and then I saw them slowly go from a light teal color to more of a yellow tint, and they stopped eating. I knew that this was probably the moment of transformation. I decided to move them into a safer, more confined home so that the other worm wouldn't bother them, and Raffi and I watched as a crazy transformation happened. Raffi was so cute, he just sat there watching them all day. Slowly but surely, their bodies started to get slightly smaller and they wiggled all day. But after 5 days passed of this, I started to get a little worried that they were dying because the skin was changing so much. I wasn't sure what was happening. I can't even tell you the emotions that I was feeling in this moment. But I just tried to trust the process, and a couple days later, something amazing happened. And little did I know that underneath that skin, magic was happening. The dark line on their body started pulsing, and then, just like that, the first one shed its final caterpillar skin, and out came this beautiful ocean blue soft pupa. And as it began to harden, that deep blue turned into a deep red. And that very same day, the second one morphed into an amazing pupa. So much going on, I loved it so much. We had been here from the very beginning, and now it was finally time to wait and watch them come out of their cocoons as hawk moths. I knew that would take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, but I knew that if you keep the temperature in the room a bit higher and you give them about 14 hours of light per day at a minimum, then that might trigger them to hatch sooner. It'll make them think it's summer. So that's exactly what I did. I knew that if the temperatures were too cold and it was too dark, then they would think it's winter, and that could trigger something called diapause, which is a period of time where they stay in their cocoon and hibernate, and that can last for up to 4 months. So I was really hoping the heat and added light would help them think that it was summer and they would transform faster. And you know what? I couldn't believe that soon I was gonna be a mother. I knew that as long as they continued to wiggle in their cocoons, they were very much alive. And it was so cool to see their little wiggles in the cocoon. I took them into my hands every week or so and made sure they were still wiggling in there. And they indeed were. I knew that they were probably gonna hatch soon, I just wasn't really sure when, but at this point in time, I made the executive decision to make their final home. I wanted to make it good too. I lined a 10-gallon tank with paper towel, and then I added some netting, a couple plant stems, some Hoya leaves, and some skewers wrapped in paper towel so that they could climb and have a good time. Now, a lot of you guys commented that I should hang the cocoons because in nature they hang when they make their cocoons, and then they hatch more easily. So I did decide to do that. I took a skewer and some string, I tied a knot on the string, and then I just weaved the string right through the little hole in their cocoon so that they could hang off of it. And then I attached that string to the netting so that when they do hatch, they'll have something to really easily climb on, and their wings can form properly, and they can climb down and chill, and soon their home started to look a little something like this, and I thought it was looking really good. I started to get so excited for these little guys to hatch. I was hoping they weren't gonna enter diapause. And let me tell you, a few weeks could not pass me by soon enough. But everything was working out well, and it was insane to know that in this little ocean blue turned reddish brown cocoon, amazing changes were happening. Their cells were reorganizing to form the structures of the adult moth. This was the second time I had ever hatched a hornworm into a butterfly, and the first time I did, the wings came out deformed. So this time I was really feeling the pressure because I really just wanted them to come out of the cocoon right this time. I was, let's say, determined. And I was feeling good about it all. These things are so beautiful, and the transformations that we already witnessed were so amazing in and of itself. It's so exciting to witness the life cycle of this little worm, but I still didn't know what was gonna happen. But before I knew it, 14 days had passed, and the time lapses were rolling, and soon I noticed the cocoons going from a dark red to a really dark brown color, and that kind of made me think they were about to emerge from their cocoon. And soon, just like that, one of the moths emerged, and only a few hours later, the second one emerged. And now it was the ultimate moment of truth because it was time to see if their wings would grow properly. But to my surprise, they did. And I was like a kid in a candy shop, so excited. At first, the moth, it was scared of me, I think. I tried picking it up, but it started flying all around the room away from me. But I think I must have grown on the little one because soon she climbed onto my hand and started looking at me. And we had a really long period of silence where we spent some time together. We had a moment, okay? I guess you can call it bonding. Either way, I tried something I always wanted to do. I put the moth on my face. And I couldn't believe it when she actually stayed on my face for like 30 minutes just hanging out and enjoying the company of, well, me. I had to take her off of my face myself because she just wanted to stay there. It was such an odd yet beautiful experience. I couldn't believe I was bonding so deeply with a little moth. Such an unexpected friendship that made me so happy. But I was also sad because I knew that in just a few days the moth would complete her life cycle and, well, die. The adult moths don't usually eat anything, which I found pretty weird, but they do drink. They develop a long antennae that stretches out in a circular motion into nectar or sugar water, and they drink that to stay hydrated. And since their adult life is so short, I was really hoping one would be male and one would be female and they would lay eggs so we could continue the life cycle and then grow their babies. But I just let them do their thing, added the sugar water to the enclosure, and I even left it open so that they could fly around the room. And we literally spent the next week together, both doing our own things, spending time together, bonding, since I was now a successful mother, okay? But what I was kind of dreading all along finally came, and just like that, in a few days' time, the moths both passed away peacefully. I ordered some things to pin the moths so that we could keep them both forever and frame them. And I kind of just sat there thinking to myself what a beautiful experience this was to witness the amazing transformation of a beautiful little bright teal hornworm into an amazing orange and black and brown hawk moth. So of course, you probably know exactly what I did next. I went to the pet store and got some silkworms so that we could help them transform and make me a silk mother.